Hi boys and girls, today's story comes from a country called China, and the story is called The Wine of Li Po. In the land of Li Po they made a very special wine. It was deep red in colour and it tasted like honey and it kept forever. But it had one other quality that made it more special than any other wine in the whole world. Whoever drank the wine of Li Po would speak the truth, and only the truth, as long as its influence lasted. Now, you might think that a wine with such wonderful properties would be in great demand, but quite the reverse was true. It seemed that fewer and fewer people dared to drink the wine of Li Po for fear that they would have to tell the truth. And the cellars of Li Po became filled with barrels and bottles of the wine that nobody would buy. At length, there was only one winemaker left in the whole of Li Po. "I can't understand," he said, "why everyone is so afraid of the truth. In my father's time, everyone drank the wine and enjoyed it. And if they had to tell the truth for half a day after, it was no matter to them." One day, however, the king of a distant country got to hear of the famous wine of Li Po. So he said to his Lord Chancellor, "Lord Chancellor, it is time I found out who my trusty subjects are and who are not. I want you to arrange for everyone in my kingdom to drink the wine of Li Po and to present themselves to me for questioning." When the Lord Chancellor heard this command, he shook with fear, for he had many dark secrets and he dreaded that the king might find them out. But he smiled and he said, "Oh, an excellent idea, Your Majesty. May I be the first to try it out?" "Good," said the king. "See to it straight away." So the Lord Chancellor ordered all the barrels of wine in Li Po to be brought up and carried in carts all over the country to his own land. There the wine was put into bottles, and on every bottle was written somebody's name. Then the bottles were carefully placed in a huge rack in the marketplace, and 7 soldiers were put on duty to guard them day and night. The Lord Chancellor, meanwhile, was racking his brains to think how he could avoid the test himself, for fear that he should reveal any of his own dark and guilty secrets to the king. So too were all the other members of the king's council, for they all had dark and guilty secrets. The same went for all the other lords and ladies, and the lawyers and the doctors and the innkeepers and the shopkeepers. In fact, every single person in the land was trying his hardest to think how he could avoid drinking the wine of Li Po and having to tell the truth to the king. Then the Lord Chancellor hit upon a plan. He had a sleeping potion put into the guard's drink, and then, at the dead of night, when they had all fallen fast asleep, the Chancellor crept down to the market square and took the bottle of wine which bore his name, emptied it out, and refilled it with ordinary wine. Then he made his way home, satisfied that when his turn came, he would not have to tell the truth. The same plan had also occurred to the other members of the king's council, and each one of them crept down to the market square during the nights that followed, and each one, unknown to the others, substituted ordinary wine in the bottle which carried his name. It was not long, of course, before word got out that the guards were asleep all night, and very soon all the other lords and ladies had taken the opportunity to do the very same thing. So too did all the lawyers and the doctors and the innkeepers and the shopkeepers and the craftsmen. Basically, by the time the day of the tasting came, every one of those bottles of wine of Li Po had been emptied and refilled with ordinary wine. The whole town was buzzing with excitement. The streets were full and the marketplace was bursting with the crowds. Everyone in the kingdom was there except for one notorious robber who'd been hiding up in the hills for several years. As soon as it was light, the king took his place on his throne and summoned the Lord Chancellor forwards. "My Lord Chancellor," he said, "since you are the most eminent of all my subjects, you shall begin." The Lord Chancellor smiled, filled his goblet and drank it down, and said, "Now, I am ready to answer any questions you wish, Your Majesty." "Very well," said the king. "First tell me, are you a good and loyal subject?" "Indeed I am," replied the Lord Chancellor, although at that moment he was plotting to overthrow the king. "Secondly," said the king, "do you think I'm a wise ruler?" "Ha! Indeed I do," exclaimed the Lord Chancellor, although secretly he thought, what a fool the king is making of himself. "And lastly," said the king, "how does the wine of Li Po taste?" "Ah, it tastes like honey made from all the flowers of heaven," said the Lord Chancellor. "Very good," said the king. "You may step down." The next to drink the wine was the Prime Minister, and the king asked him the same 3 questions, and the Prime Minister made similar answers, although he was really no better than the Lord Chancellor. And so they went on and on through all the king's council, all the lords and ladies, all the lawyers and the doctors and the townsfolk and all the country folk. And because they'd all emptied the wine of Li Po out of the bottles that had their names on it and replaced it with ordinary wine, none of them was afraid of answering any of the king's questions. Well, the questioning went on all that day and all the next day and all the day after that, until just as they were questioning the very last subject of all, some soldiers arrived with the robber, who they'd caught stealing in broad daylight while everybody was in the city. They hauled him up before the king, and the king ordered him to drink the wine of Li Po and then answer the questions that he would put to him. Now the robber didn't know that all the wine of Li Po had been poured away, so he took the cup with fear and trembling. But he drank it all the same, and he faced the king. "Now, firstly, are you a good and loyal subject?" asked the king. "You know me for what I am," replied the robber. "I've robbed your kingdom for many years." "Oh, shame!" cried all the people. "Secondly, do you think I'm a wise ruler?" asked the king. "I've got nothing to lose by telling the truth," replied the robber, "and the truth is, a wise ruler would decide for himself which of his subjects he could trust." "Traitor!" shouted the crowd. "And lastly," said the king, "how does the wine of Li Po taste?" "I've no idea," replied the robber. "I've never tasted it. This is just ordinary wine." At which words a silence fell over the marketplace, and everyone stared at the ground. The king rose and said, "Is this the only person in my kingdom who dares to tell the truth?" So, there and then, he dismissed the Lord Chancellor, and instead he appointed the robber in his place, saying, I would rather have a Lord Chancellor as a thief than somebody who was scared to tell the truth. And from that day forth, the wine of Li Po was never seen in his kingdom again, for it had served its purpose, even though not one drop of it had been drunk.